Location. The location of the various crimes does actually factor into its effectiveness, believe it or not. The idea that William was killing in his own Fazbear restaurants is a ridiculous concept that in reality should have gotten him sent to prison. The saying is something along the lines of like, don't crap where you eat, which some take literally, others take as don't date people you see on a regular basis, and in this scenario I suggest that it should mean don't kill people where you're seen on a regular basis or, you know, constantly because it's your own business, especially if it's the business that like targets kids. And while yes, this doesn't instantly make you guilty, but come on, the first thing that anyone would do in this situation, not even a cop, would be question everyone who was working when whatever had happened, or whoever it was disappeared. And let's be realistic, an incident the likes of the missing children's incident from 1985 would ruin a business permanently. None of this somehow they stay open bullshit, because in the real world they would end up closing permanently because no parent would want to go to a place where 5 kids went missing, especially when no bodies were found, which could maybe help them, but it certainly wouldn't help much. If Afton had any competitors, any at all, alright? Even this world's version of Chuck E. Cheese, Afton should have gone there. If he had any competitors, or literally anywhere else, would have made more sense. However, he chose to kill where he eats, and that's probably one of the worst decisions that he could have made. Well, aside from, you know, the killing in the first place. Animatronics. While the animatronics are an entirely other mistake, this time around I want to talk about how stupid it was to hide the bodies in the animatronics. Like, how the f*** did he end up getting away with this? The smell of rotting bodies would already ruin the place, especially when its focus is eating pizza. The heat from the animatronic insides would speed up decomposition, and the animatronics are in front of people every single day. They even started complaining that they were leaking blood and mucus, as well as smelling like death. If this was real, and William getting away with it wasn't important for the plot, he would have been caught instantly. Oh, we never found the bodies of these kids, but now these animatronics are leaking blood and smell like death. Hell, they even make bone-crushing sounds when they move. We should probably check this out. Oh look, turns out we found those missing kids. William Afton, you're under arrest for the murder of Cassidy, Fritz, Jeremy, Gabriel, Susie. Boom! Instantly. I don't know how this wasn't an open and shut case. Straight up, William was so goddamn stupid that he shouldn't have made it to the first game. Not to mention how stupid he was by building the Funtime animatronics with these item containment chambers, as he was calling it, since the cops ended up questioning him about why he made those design choices in the sister location opening scene. Plus, he superpowered the jaw of Fredbear from Fredbear's Family Diner to end up giving it a jaw that accidentally killed his son. Absolute moron. William, not the son. It wasn't his fault that he got his head shoved in there. If he had put it in there himself, it would have been his fault, but he didn't. Enemies. Now, while William did choose a set of easy marks, since, you know, kids can't really defend themselves against a dude in a part animatronic furry suit, but he's a moron for exclusively killing that demographic only. I don't know why he did that. Sure, it's easier on him, especially when he's fully combined with an animatronic, but Henry serves as the opposition to William, and the reason William ends up burning multiple times. It's not Henry's fault that he turned into Springtrap, but it's certainly his fault that he turned into Scrap Trap, since this is most likely due to the FNAF 3 fire, and the FNAF 6 fire turned him into Burn Trap. So Henry has definitely been a pain in William's side for ages. Killing Henry would have resulted in nobody being able to chase William, basically. Like, Michael might have figured it out, but he wouldn't really be in a position to do anything without Henry. Henry gave him the FNAF 3 job, probably, and definitely gave him the FNAF 6 job, so if William had just offed Henry after offing his daughter, he would have had a much easier time, at least I'd think so. That's why every comic villain wants to kill the hero, right? Because if they do, they'll have a much easier time committing all their various crimes. So how is this any different? It shouldn't be. William is an absolute buffoon for not killing Henry when he had the chance. I'm sure it was Henry reporting him to the cops, like, you killed this man's daughter. Of course he's gonna have some form of vendetta against your ass. He's coming for blood and he actively tries to kill you multiple times. That's not something that you should have just ignored. You should have just killed Henry after his daughter, because honestly it makes sense. Then you kill his wife or the mother of Charlotte, as long as she's in the picture, knows about it, and actually cares, because sometimes they don't. But mom's gonna go after anyone who wronged their child, okay? Oh, that's something to witness, I'm telling you. Even my mom is vicious as hell, and she's like the sweetest woman in the world. So, you just get rid of the family, alright? Especially when it's your business partner. God, you're stupid. And while William may never have been caught for these acts, that's simply because he couldn't get caught or the plot would make no sense. So ultimately, the game had to find an excuse for his ridiculous behavior. But William could have done wonders if he had just been slightly more intelligent and maybe actually thought about things. Killing kids in your own pizzeria is horrible for business, so do that somewhere else, okay? If he had, he wouldn't have hid the bodies in the animatronics, which would have prevented the kids from attaching their souls to the animatronics that they were stuffed into. Thus, William wouldn't have had to disassemble them, which accidentally released their souls, causing him to hide in his Springtrap suit. The Spring bodysuit would have failed without him inside, thus preventing Springtrap from being created, and William wouldn't have been sealed behind a wall for 30 years. During those 30 years, he'd still be possessed by the one you should not have killed, since they didn't latch onto an animatronic in the first place, they latched onto him, and he'd be unable to properly die still. But he'd have an extra 30 years to work on bringing his kid back to life. He wouldn't have needed to send Michael to get baby from Afton Robotics' storage facility, and Michael would have ended up fine. Fazbear Frights wouldn't have opened, resulting in the place never burning down, and the FNAF 6 game wouldn't have needed to take place. There would have been no need to repair the company image in FNAF VR. William would have been probably a millionaire, and he could have used that money to study ways to bring his son back. Perhaps discovering Remnant along the way, similar to how Henry created the Ella doll in the novels. William could have poured his grief into something, watched it become possessed, and then worked on recreating that in a robot version of his dead children. If his children even died anyway. Since Fazbear's wouldn't have closed, he wouldn't have needed to open Circus Babies, resulting in Elizabeth staying alive. And since Crying Child wouldn't have seen her get scooped, he wouldn't fear the animatronics. Thus Michael not needing to put his head in the Fredbear mouth because he thought it was funny, because his brother was scared. His brother wouldn't have been scared, so Michael wouldn't have needed to do that. William also just wouldn't have supercharged Fredbear's jaw, so even if Crying Child did get his head in there, which again I guess would technically be possible, he still wouldn't have died because of it. All of this simply goes back to William's first mistake, which was choosing to kill people in his own establishment. If that first kill also wasn't his business partner's daughter, nobody would have been suspicious of him and everything would have gone his way. Okay? Afton is smart. However, he could have been a lot smarter at the start, which would have resulted in him having an easy time on his killing spree, but I guess that would make for a very interesting game series, would it? And at 10, Cassidy. Assuming for the scenario that Cassidy is the one you should not have killed, this was one of the dumbest things that William could have done. Or maybe he doesn't consider it a mistake, since the one you should not have killed after all is keeping him alive. They're doing it as a way to make him suffer though, so since it's potentially a mistake but could be considered a good thing depending on the angle, I'm going with the top spot for this one. Well, the first spot for this one. But even if he does consider that a good thing or an absolute win, or if Cassidy doesn't end up being the one you should not have killed, killing those 5 kids that made up the missing children's incident that most likely ended with Cassidy was a mistake, since it causes basically everything else in his life to go downhill, and he does end up suffering extremely only because of that kill and the others. So if you don't want to count Cassidy as the mistake, count the missing children's incident as the mistake. And at 9, Charlotte. While yes, Charlotte may have been Afton's first true kill, causing his descent into madness, this is more so because of what she turns into. In the games, Charlotte ends up possessing the puppet, who then gives life to the other animatronics, which causes you to disassemble them and release their spirits, and then scare you into your spring bodysuit that crushes you, and then starts your descent into further madness. But even discounting the game aspects of killing her being a mistake, in both universes where William kills Charlotte, Henry comes after him for it, which results in what should be his death multiple times over. And not to mention how in the book specifically, unbeknownst to her, Charlie is an animatronic robot that was meant to replace Henry's daughter, and it's also revealed that the animatronic is also the baby animatronic that we know and love, who can switch between her forms at will. So yeah, in the books, Charlotte is also baby, who is also Elizabeth Afton. And at 8, the fun times. There's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state of the art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping you could shed some light on those. She can dance, she can sing, she's equipped with the built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips, she can take song requests, she can even dispense ice cream. With all due respect, those aren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton. This classic line of Afton being interrogated that plays the first time you open Sister Location is definitely showcasing this idiotic mistake. The cops know what these animatronics are capable of and were designed to do, so they instantly end up being even more suspicious of William and are going to be keeping a closer eye on him. Probably why he ends up dressing up in the spring bodysuit to start killing, which ultimately screws him over. So yeah, designing the fun times as killbots was definitely a bad idea. And at 7, VR Springtrap. FNAF VR may be one of the more recent games in the series, but it certainly is one of the freakiest. VR horror is such an experience, okay? But combine that with the story of Five Nights at Freddy's and you get one hell of a game. And while Springtrap's jump scare in normal FNAF 3 may not be scary, having to deal with this guy up close and personal and literally towering above you will have you changing your attitude and your pants on a regular basis. Since this time, when jump scaring you, he pops up from the bottom of your screen and shaking his face at you as much as humanly possible before he actually causes you to lose the game. Speaking of which, I lost the game. I personally believe that all the jump scares are scarier in FNAF VR, not to mention how everything is scarier when it's towering over you, because in that case it appears to have more power and be more powerful, and let's be honest, Springtrap's design kinda needs that to be scary. I don't know, I don't think that the actual character is scary, but his story is certainly scary, but not really him. It's confusing. And at 6, Hiding Spot. How the absolute living hell did he not end up, like, how did he get away with this? How did he not get caught? The smell of rotting bodies would ruin the hell out of the actual atmosphere of the pizza place, because you know you're supposed to be trying to eat pizza, and the heat from the animatronics, like the robotic parts of their body, would help to speed up the decomposition of the missing kids. And the animatronics are in front of all those other kids every single day. There's even reports about people complaining that the animatronics started leaking blood, mucus, and other bodily fluids, as well as, quote, smelling like death. If this was real life and William getting away with this wasn't important for the plot or the story of the overall games, he would have been caught for that instantly. Like, oh, we never found the bodies of these kids that went missing at this pizza place, but now the animatronics at this pizza place are leaking blood and smell like death. They also sound like their bones are being crushed when they move, so maybe we should check these out. Let's get a warrant. Oh, look, turns out we found those missing kids. William Afton, you're under arrest for the murder of Gabriel, Susie, Jeremy, Cassidy, and Fritz. Boom. Oh, then they could probably throw on Charlie and a couple others on there, I'm sure. Like, boom, instantly, he gets caught. I don't get how this wasn't an open and shut case. Like, William is so goddamn stupid that he shouldn't have made it to the events of the first game. Like, not even 1987, or not even 1985, alright? It shouldn't have happened. His whole plan is a dumpster fire of bad ideas. Halfway through into number 5, Sinister Springtrap. Sinister Springtrap used to be an upcoming antagonist in Sinister Turmoil, a cancelled fan game. He looks like original Springtrap, being dirty colored with hanging wires from his head, and only two differences that our purple guy's corpse head is clearly visible this time, and, because you know, he's a sinister, he has long, sharp teeth going on. Currently, he's not in the game, but he was planned on being in the full game and possibly in the demo. However, like I said, the game was in fact canceled. And this guy is scary for the reason any of the other Sinister characters are scary. This time around, he just doesn't really have a jump scare, hence why I'm putting him at number 5, because like he doesn't really have an official one, like from Sinister Turmoil, but there are plenty of fan-made jump scares for this fan-made character from a fan game, which is a whole other level of meta that I don't want to talk about. I don't want to try thinking about that today. So since this is such a technicality, it gets the middle spot so everyone is happy, okay? Now since I put him at number 5, watch me wake up to Springtrap, to like Sinister Springtrap jump scaring me. It's like, you like this? You're looking for these? Ah! It's late in the day if you can't tell. And at 4, Crying Child. I've had a ton of people complain to me about how Crying Child's death wasn't William's fault, since he didn't put Crying Child in Fredbear's mouth, and the spring locks failing were because he was crying. However, to me, there is no logical way that the animatronic jaw should have been able to crush his skull, okay? The spring locks were already active. Crushing his skull would require a lot of power to actually accomplish with just a normal opening and closing of an animatronic mouth. So the only way that Crying Child's skull could have been crushed was if Afton had intentionally supercharged the animatronic, which would make sense if he wanted to use it as a kill machine or a backup kill suit, maybe if Springtrap or Spring Bonnie ever ended up shutting down. Figuring more power would help him out, which clearly it did, just in the worst way possible. There is no way that this was a spring lock failure either, okay? The Fredbear suit was already in animatronic mode, meaning that the spring lock mechanisms used to keep the robot parts to the side of the suit so that someone could be in the suit weren't being used. The spring lock failure problem comes from when those mechanisms are put under the stress of keeping the parts away from the person in the suit. If it's in robot mode, the spring locks can't fail because they're not being used. Keep in mind that the term spring lock in this context is referring to the actual parts that move the robot bits away inside the suit, rather than just the suit as a whole, which is also referred to as a spring lock. Well, it's referred to as a spring lock suit, okay? If I was talking about the suit, I would say spring lock suit. Getting close to the end, and in number 3, Crying Child. I've had a ton of people complain to me about how Crying Child's death wasn't William's fault, since he wasn't the one who put Crying Child's head in Fredbear's mouth, okay? And then the spring locks failed because he was crying. But let's be honest, there is no logical way that that animatronic jaw should have crushed his skull. Even the spring locks, okay? The spring locks weren't active and would have required a lot of power to actually accomplish this goal with just normal opening and closing power of a jaw. So the only way that Crying Child's skull could have been crushed was if Afton had intentionally, for some reason, supercharged the jaw of the animatronic. Which it would make sense if he wanted to use it as a kill machine, like as a prototype fun time, or maybe he wanted to use it as a backup kill suit in case Spring Bonnie ended up failing. Figuring more power in the jaw would help him, which clearly it did, just in literally the worst way possible. There's also no way that this is a spring lock failure, guys, okay? The suit was already in animatronic mode, meaning that the spring lock mechanisms that are the reason that it could fail, because they're used to keep the robotic parts to the size that someone can fit in the suit, weren't being used because it was in animatronic mode. So they don't need to keep the robotic parts to the side. The spring lock failure problem comes when those mechanisms are put under stress of having to keep the parts away from the person in the suit, okay? And then if they get wet, that's when they can loose, and then that's why they can't get wet, okay? Keep in mind that the term spring lock in this context is being referred to the parts that move the robotic bits away inside the actual suit. Since the suit is also referred to as a spring lock, I feel like I kind of need to clarify that. And ultimately, into number 2, Springtrap. Being the genius behind some of the most advanced robotic technology in his universe, we expect a lot from William Afton. He's the suit technician, but he's also the main killer, so he should really know what he's doing, right? No, apparently not. Since, after discovering that the original 5 animatronics were possessed, he disassembled them to learn their secrets. This inadvertently released the spirits of his original 5 victims, however, causing William to panic, which is fairly reasonable since, firstly, they're freaking ghost kids, and also because they're ghost kids that he killed. So this absolute animatronic genius, the technician that handles the suit maintenance and has explained to every employee the proper procedure for the spring lock suits, including the spring body suit that he uses to kill, ends up climbing inside the suit in a panic, in an attempt to make himself feel more powerful and maybe to scare the ghost kids off. However, since he's so smart, he didn't notice the moisture of the room, the leaking ceiling, which which ended up causing the spring locks that were active at this moment, since it was in suit mode, to fail, which would have killed him had he not been possessed by the one you should not have killed. Ironic. And finally, in at number 1, location. The biggest mistake William has ever made, and I will stand by this till the day I die, was the fact that he killed people in his establishment. Okay, it's unknown if this was always his intention, but come on, who the absolute hell thinks that this is a good idea? Who in the comments wants to justify killing your prime demographic in your place of business? Dealers don't kill their best customers, right? Because it's bad for business. So why would William think it's a good idea? Literally, go anywhere else. This is like basically killing someone in your house. Okay, it's putting unwanted and unneeded scrutiny on everything you do. You even end up getting banned from going back in there while the investigation is underway. And it's not like it helped your business. You had to close the first location, resulting in you having to open another location called Circus Babies that ended up killing your daughter. So I think that this mistake is the one that caused every other mistake in the series. All you had to do was kill someone at the park. If you killed someone at the park instead, your kids would be alive. You'd be harder to suspect, and then you'd also be rich from your business. And that's why William is a dumbass. In at 10, FNAF 3 Springtrap. It's pretty universally known that FNAF 3 is one of the easier FNAF games. With only one animatronic that can actually kill you, you can juggle him between a couple rooms for basically the whole night. You're able to survive fairly easily. But while some consider this game scary, overall it's one of the least scary of all, and that's thanks to Springtrap. Springtrap's jump scare in this game is actually the worst jump scare in the series, having the only real scare factor being the sound that plays along with it. But as for the actual model, he just kinda moves towards you a little bit, and that's it. There was also apparently an interview where Scott said that he was going to end the series after game 3, but the community's disappointment with the Springtrap jump scare caused him to make the 4th game with the Nightmare animatronics. I'm unable to find that interview, but that also makes sense to me. Like, the Nightmare animatronics were sort of overcorrecting for the lack of scares in FNAF 3, since you could also easily predict the phantom jump scares. So, I can see it. And at 9, Sister Location. While William wasn't really in Sister Location as one of the enemies, because, you know, all those fused into Ennard, he was still in it during the final cutscene, where Michael is giving his final speech, saying, "Father, it's me, Michael. I did it. I found it. It was right where you said it would be. They were all here. They didn't recognize me at first, but then they thought I was you. And I found her. I put her back together, just like you asked me to. She's free now, but something is wrong with me. I should be dead, but I'm not. I've been living in the shadows. There is only one thing left for me to do now. I'm going to come find you. I'm going to come find you." After that final line, Springtrap jumps out from behind the ruins of Fazbear's Fright, which burnt down at the end of FNAF 3. This is less of a jump scare, more of a way to show that Springtrap and by proxy William are still alive. However, it's still scarier than the normal Springtrap jump scare if you weren't ready for it or knew that it was coming. So. And at 8, Scrap Trap. See, this one is a bit of a weird one because, well, like, you can decide if it's possible or not. Since you don't really have to salvage an animatronic, you can just leave it for scrap and not keep it inside the building, thus allowing yourself not to have to stress over a psychotic killer rabbit, which is my personal recommendation. However, if you make the fool's decision and trap Scrap Trap, you have the possibility of being jump scared, which usually would only happen when you're not focused on protecting yourself. So, mostly when you're worried about your pizzeria or completing the tasks you need to do in order to leave and to complete the day. But this one is more unexpected, and Scrap Trap is certainly freakier than Springtrap is. And this jump scare is actually more like a jump scare than the Springtrap one, so needless to say, it deserves to be higher. Well, higher than those. However, there are scarier jump scares despite this. And at 7, Henry. Why did you think that killing Charlotte wouldn't have any consequences? Like, you killed your business partner's daughter. That's gonna be pretty obvious to him, especially when he already suspected you were up to something. So he took extra care to protect his daughter, and she still died. That's a vengeful father if I have ever heard of one, and he hasn't even needed vengeance yet. So then, you know, he's after you, or seems like it, and you don't kill him next? Killing Henry could have done wonders for your criminal career. I mean, like, yeah, the cops are already suspicious, but as long as they can't find a body, you'll be clear again. If they won't put you away for 5 missing kids, they won't put you away for a missing father as well. Especially a jury who has to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that you are a killer. And without a body, there's no real forensic evidence. And again, they didn't put you away for the missing kids, so you just finally off Henry and then you'd be able to stase yourself or even a Springtrap, alright? And then you don't get burned like 3 separate times, and Michael would still be alive. And at 6, Glamrock Freddy. During Security Breach's final boss fight, Freddy is hacked by Burntrap and will stand in the center of the room as a hazard. If Burntrap ends up successfully hacking him, he will kill Gregory, either by chasing him down or by pulling Gregory out of his stomach if the player had entered beforehand. Gregory can still lure Freddy away by calling him over to different spots though. And since his eyes turn purple after William possesses him or hacks him or whatever, okay? Possessed Glamrock Freddy is a version of Afton, so it's good enough for me. This is mostly scary because from what I've seen, people are often confused as to why Freddy is suddenly running at them. They don't know enough about the series to hide from anything purple. So they get jump scared, flip out, and then realize that Afton got to him. So yeah, the fact that we can trust Freddy this whole game is kind of what makes this jump scare so brutal, but it's still not the worst one out there. Halfway through into number 5, Elizabeth. Speaking of mistakes, let's talk about his own daughter. I get it, because she's a mistake. Actually, we don't know. She might be. I don't know how William thought that like this was a good idea though. Like, I feel like this guy, like, trying to brainstorm how to capture kids more efficiently, and like, he hadn't even started killing at this point. He's like, oh, I know, I can make a robot to lure them in with ice cream and then grab them where they're close. Okay, so what's it gonna look like? Oh, let's call my daughter and ask for some design tips, you know? Then like, Elizabeth ends up making the most predictable move ever and going directly against her father's instructions like a kid to go see the robot. That's basically perfect in her eyes. William, why? Why did you think that this wasn't going to happen? You had to lock your child in his room so that he wouldn't go to Freddy Fazbear's fucking pizza, and you think that your daughter isn't gonna walk up to an animatronic, especially at the age where they want to piss you off. And they're also seemingly loaded because you own a successful entertainment business, okay? Spoiled rich kids listening to their dad when they say to not touch a giant robot that was made to appeal to kids? Yeah, that's gonna work. God, you're a special kind of stupid. It's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. It is truly embarrassing, bro. Okay? All you needed to do was have a blacklist and say, don't kill these kids. And you would have been fine. But no. And at 4, Desk Scrap Trap. Salvaging is a major method first used in FNAF Pizzeria Simulator. It is an optional section that occurs on each of the 4 nights starting on Monday after the management phase. As Henry says during each salvage, each animatronic was found in the back alley. After he explains what options are open to the player, they can either proceed with the salvage or throw it back into the alley. If the player decides to salvage the animatronic, the salvaging section begins immediately. This process is simple. Henry will play 1 out of 5 audio prompts through the tape, and the player must check on the responses on the form itself based on whether or not the animatronic actually responded to the stimuli, when in reality they're just reacting to you not looking at them. This sequence, should you look away for too long or at the wrong time, will result in a jump scare, but the desk jump scares, in my personal opinion, are pretty damn freaky, especially Scrap Traps, because like, this clearly isn't his first rodeo, but like, just man, I don't know what it is about someone coming over a desk to kill me. I just don't like it. Getting close to the end, into number 3, Ignited Springtrap. Ignited Springtrap is the main and only antagonist to the Joy of Creation Halloween edition. Ignited Springtrap is a more decayed and damaged version of Springtrap from Five Nights at Freddy's 3. He doesn't have the suit's lower jaw, revealing William Afton's lower jaw. His eyes closely resemble the Phantom animatronics from FNAF 3, with the exception of them being orange-ish instead of white, and he seems to have a darker green costume, possibly due to the last sighting. He also looks fairly similar to Burntrap, so much so that I mistaked his jump scare that I saw separately from the Ignited Springtrap name for a Burntrap character in a fan game, so it was going to be on the list twice. He looks so close to Burntrap, it's actually kinda insane. His upper right arm, left forearm, and right shin lack their suit casing, and there is a massive rip in his chest, exposing Afton's innards instead of innards. Get it? His ears aren't damaged any further than they were in FNAF 3, but most of his body is exposed with little pieces of the suit being visible. And during his jump scare in this game, he actually kicks you into a fire, and then he pins you to the ground and then just kills you unless you try to push him up, and then you move his suit. Just watch the clip. Penultimately, in at number 2, Flaming Springtrap. Flaming Springtrap was added during the Sizzling Summer event for FNAF AR and was understandably the final skin to be added in that update. Being Springtrap's second skin behind Toxic Springtrap, we weren't quite sure what to expect. But like, have you ever wondered what Springtrap looked like during the fire in FNAF 3? Or wondered what it was like in my old apartment? This is what it would feel like. This also answers the original question because he is definitely the kind of person to absorb all the flames and then use them to his advantage. Flaming Springtrap is a coal-colored Springtrap with dark orange highlights, and he is glowing orange from his endoskeleton since it's so hot, because you know he's flaming. He has flames spouting out of every open area possible, and you know what, honestly, who is ready for the 1000 degree endoskeleton challenge? Cause I am. His hands and feet are on fire the most, and for some reason he has no upper teeth. This is horrifying, okay? Especially if these are supposed to be real animatronics that Fazbear Entertainment is sending to people's homes. And my building thinks that my power block or power bar is a fire hazard. It's so befuddling to me how these are actually supposed to be real animatronics, okay? That's horrific. And the skins are canon, as we see in Fury's Rage, which is surely just one of the Security Breach arcade games. And finally, in at number 1, Garvey. A psychopathic, cold-blooded killer, he stopped being human long ago. That's how Garvey is described in the extras of Dormitibus, the FNAF fan game from which he hails. Garvey is the penultimate antagonist to Dormitibus. He later went on to get trapped in Spring Bonnie, becoming Springtrap, and then he was burned to a permanent death in the Fazbear Fright's fire. Garvey is a more gory version of Springtrap from FNAF 3. However, it is not William Afton, as this game was released before the name was revealed, and even before FNAF 4. Springtrap, but with hardly any exosuit or animatronic casing, whatever you want to call it, and this is him, okay? He crawls on all fours and uses his left hand as a foot and his left foot as a hand, like some demon monkey from hell that Satan didn't sanction the creation of. Just look at this thing and tell me that it shouldn't be on this list, okay? If you do, you'll be lying. I don't care if it's a fan game. This is the scariest version of William Afton we have ever gotten. And at 10, Plush Trap. Technically, in a sense, Plush Trap is just the small version of Springtrap, right? I mean, if you think about it, if you shrunk Springtrap down and made him like Scrappy-Doo proportions, you'd have Plush Trap. So the Plush Trap jump scare from the Fun with Plush Trap minigame counts as William Afton, at least enough to be number 10. I mean, a kid in FNAF 4 even says, "Where's your plush toy? Mine is Spring Bonnie. My daddy says I need to be careful with him or it will pinch my finger. He's a finger trap," he says. So that's good enough for me. He is a nightmarish variant of the Spring Bonnie plush toy, who first appeared in Five Nights at Freddy's 4 as the main antagonist of his own minigame Fun with Plush Trap. Plush Trap is a smaller plush version of Spring Bonnie. He is similar in design to Springtrap, albeit much more cartoonish and less damaged, and he also seems to be less menacing in appearance than most other nightmare animatronics. But that doesn't stop his jump scare from still getting you, okay? Because even enough to cause Eddie VR to flip out multiple times. That was funny though. In at 9, PowerPoint Springtrap. This game, called FNAF 3 PowerPoint Edition, is a game that from the description was made in PowerPoint. This FNAF game was made in PowerPoint. How the ever-loving hell does that work? How do you make a FNAF game in PowerPoint? Imagine if that's how Scott released the first game, just like a frickin' PowerPoint file. That would have been insane. This is very simply a click a couple of times and then get jump scared kind of thing. At least this jump scare is scarier than the original FNAF 3 jump scare. This is wrong, and it feels incorrect. It feels like a sin on so many levels to play it, or even have it downloaded, okay? I thought that the whole PowerPoint thing was a joke, but no, it's literally a PowerPoint file that you click through. So this jump scare is scary because it's bad. And the only reason it's not number 10 is because of Plush Trap. This is just wrong. Why would you do this? The jump scare is also unavoidable, actually. You can't win this version. And apparently, from what I was looking at, these PowerPoints are a series of games. In at 8, Ultimate Custom Night Scrap Trap. Scrap Trap, formerly known as William Afton, is a bipedal green-colored animatronic with his human corpse trapped inside, although it's not actually a corpse, although the wiki calls it a corpse. The wikis need to be updated. William wasn't dead at this point, okay? The suit's head is heavily damaged and reveals a yellowish color underneath, which may be part of his skin, maybe the suit. We aren't entirely sure, although it might also be just bone. There are also gray and red wires that connect his skin to his suit. He has gray robotic eyes and 2 teeth resembling a cartoon rabbit, with smaller, sharper teeth lining his bottom jaw. His right arm lacks a hand, resembling a broken bone, and there are multiple bone-like claws on his left hand. In Ultimate Custom Night, Afton only appears once per night, and there is a chance that he won't appear at all. When he does appear, however, the office lights will flicker and a loud clamoring noise will come from the right vent before attacking. The player must quickly close the right vent door to block him, and he will not appear for the rest of the night if you do it correctly. But if you don't, Scrapchop's jump scare is one of the few animated ones in this game, making it scarier than someone like Nightmare Balloon Boy, who only has an image that moves around. You really cheaped out on the jump scares in this game, Scott, just saying. And it's 7 hiding spot. Okay, again, how the absolute living hell did you get away with this? The smell of rotting bodies would ruin any place that you're in, okay? It doesn't matter if you're eating, if you're dancing, I don't know, committing murder. The smell of rotting bodies always puts a damper on things. And the heat from the animatronics moving on like all their insides, because you know, it's heat. It would speed up the decomposition and make it stink even worse, because heat always makes things worse. And the animatronics are in front of people every single day, okay? People even started complaining that the animatronics were leaking blood, as well as, quote, smelling like death. If that was real life, William would be gone, okay? He would have been caught instantaneously. Like, oh man, we never found the bodies of these kids. Wait, hold up. These animatronics are leaking blood, smell like death. Call Agent Booth. We need to check these. Then they found the missing kids. Alright, Afton is under arrest. They already suspected him. And I mean, like, having bodies hidden in your animatronics where you're the technician for the suits and also, I don't know, the CEO. Yeah, you're instantly incarcerated. I don't know. I don't know how this wasn't just a clean-cut case. Okay, I know that was important for the story of the games, but it shouldn't have happened, alright? His whole plan is a dumpster fire of embarrassment, and I love it. And it's 6, Insane Spring Bonnie. Insane Spring Bonnie is a nightmarish depiction of Spring Bonnie from the Five Nights at Freddy series. Well, not Insane Spring Bonnie isn't from the FNAF series, but Spring Bonnie is, and it's based off Spring Bonnie. That's what I meant. Insane Spring Bonnie bears a huge resemblance to the Springtrap from FNAF 3. He is a greenish yellow with many rips and tears, and Insane Spring Bonnie, similar to the other animatronics, has 2 rows of sharp teeth and steel claws. The front of his chest is torn open, exposing the endoskeleton within him, alongside his legs. He is also missing half of his right ear. Insane Spring Bonnie starts moving around at night 3. Insane Spring Bonnie looks strongly like Springtrap from FNAF 3, so like, I mean, like, that makes sense since Springtrap is like the Spring Bonnie suit. But Insane Spring Bonnie was not planned by the developers of the fan game it's a part of until later in development. This is all coming from what I read on the URL, the FNAF fan game wiki, and it didn't actually list the game that the Insane Spring Bonnie was a part of, which is kind of an oversight on their part. But I mean, like, if you know, let me know in the comments. This thing looks horrifying though. Insane Bonnie comes from Final Nights 4, but I don't know if Insane Spring Bonnie is something else or not. I think it's from a game called Insanity, but I also could be wrong. Let me know. If you know, let me know. Halfway through into number 5, Elizabeth. Speaking of mistakes, let's talk about his daughter. What about getting your own kid killed? That's what I mean. Like, I don't know how William thought that this was a good idea. Like, I feel like this guy just thought, like, how do I capture kids more efficiently? Oh, I know, I can make a robot to lure them in and then grab them when they're close. But like, what would its design be? Hey honey, come here, daddy wants some design tips. And then Elizabeth ends up making the most predictable move ever and going directly against her father's instructions to see the robot that's basically perfect in her eyes. Like, William, why did you think that this was ever going to end well? Like, what did you think was going to happen? When has a kid ever listened to a parent? Especially at that age, when they're seemingly also loaded because you own a successful entertainment business. Spoiled rich kids listening to their dad when they say not to touch a giant robot made to appeal to them specifically. Yeah, genius idea, man. God, you're a real special kind of stupid, William, aren't you? Like, program a blacklist of kids not to steal, right? You have facial recognition tech, so come on. Just make a blacklist, like, don't kill my kids. Easy. God. In at 4, AR Springtrap. In FNAF Special Delivery, Springtrap will haywire frequently. This can lead to a haywire chain where Springtrap will haywire up to like 5 times back to back. But to avoid a jump scare, the player must stare at him when his eyes are white and then look away when they turn red. Springtrap will taunt the player throughout his attack as well, occasionally fake charging. When Springtrap materializes during his charge, the player must quickly shock him or they will be jump scared. It is also possible to obtain a Springtrap plush suit, which can be placed on an endoskeleton, and said endoskeleton can then be salvaged for parts, or sent to attack other players with Springtrap's appearance. Yeah. That's messed up. The Springtrap animatronic in this game is creepier than the original counterpart since it's just a recreation. However, the fact that it's a recreation of the killer and right in your face on your phone makes it deserving of the number 4 spot in my opinion. I still don't know why Fazbear Entertainment thinks that it's a good idea for this. Like why? I feel like everyone knows that Springtrap's the bad guy, but they're like, oh yeah, here's one for your home. You get a Springtrap, you get a Springtrap, everyone gets a homicidal maniac! Getting close to the end, and at number 3, The Curse. The Curse is an Aztec-themed skin for the Springtrap animatronic and was released on March 5th in the Ancient Equinox event and is the 4th skin for Springtrap in FNAF AR. The Curse is a teal-colored Springtrap dressed to look like an ancient Aztec warrior, and he has a large feathered crown and a golden chest piece. His hands are colored orange with sharp black claws, and one of them holds like a large golden shield. Finally, he is also decorated on the head with 2 large feathers, which is kind of weird, but I dig it. This guy looks like he's actually decaying as well, which is certainly a better spin on things since decaying bodies aren't purple, even though the series seems to try and push that idea. Bruises are purple, okay? Decay is more commonly depicted as green, or at least in other media. In real life it's not. Much how like Springtrap's suit in his curse form is dark green. This also could be a subtle reference to the fact that Afton is a curse on these games, being unable to ever get rid of him in any meaningful way, or maybe it's just about Glitchtrap and the Curse of Dreadbear DLC. Who knows? I do. I know. He is a curse on this series and my life and needs to die permanently, okay? Not to mention that just in general, Springtrap looks creepier in FNAF AR than FNAF 3 or FNAF VR, okay? Check out the wiki and then look at his pictures, okay? The FNAF VR and then FNAF AR. FNAF AR is horrifying. And ultimately, in at number 2, Reaper Springtrap. Reaper Spring Bonnie is one of the Reaper antagonists in Final Nights 3 Nightmares Awoken. He is referred to by the Fredbear plush as my friend, possibly because that the original Fredbear entertained alongside Spring Bonnie, so they're friends that way, not like cohorting, I think, hopefully. But like the others in Final Nights 3, he's a Reaper animatronic. Reaper Spring Bonnie returns in the 4th and final game in the series, Final Nights 4 Fates Entwined as well, where he just looks absolutely terrifying. In Final Nights 4, Reaper Spring Bonnie, referred to in the museum as just Reaper Bonnie, appears in Investigation 4. He, along with Reaper Balloon Boy, Reaper Puppet, Reaper Mangle, and Reaper Golden Freddy, attack Max Donovan in the hospital bedroom. His behavior is the same as in Final Nights 3. The player will hear him moan like some weird person in my DMs, and they will have to run up to the door and use the flashlight to scare him away. He also looks way more terrifying in Final Nights 4 than he did in 3. Not only does he have 1 jump scare as well, he also has 2. One at the door, and one for if he gets into the room. Both are horrifying, but the door scare just seems more expected to me, because like you would see him walking into the room, therefore more terrifying than if he actually gets into the room. However, if I was really strapped, I could have used both jump scares for numbers, just saying. And finally, in at number 1, Nightmare Springtrap. A mod for FNAF 4, Nightmare Springtrap is a nightmare animatronic that bears a resemblance to Nightmare Fredbear or Nightmare Freddy, as he's known throughout the community. I mean, like Nightmare Fredbear, Nightmare Freddy, they're 2 different things in my opinion. Nightmare Springtrap though only appears on night 8, the challenge night, and upon completion of the night the player will unlock a 4th star and plush versions of Chica, Bonnie, Spring Bonnie, and Fredbear for the player's bedroom. Many of the plushes will be scattered around the room in different places, such as on the floor and along the top of dressers and stuff, but the player is able to see Nightmare Springtrap once before it enters the room. If you do see it, that counter resets, giving the player 1 more chance to complete the night. Once Nightmare Springtrap is activated by this, the other animatronics, including Fredbear, will then be deactivated for the rest of the challenge night, leaving the player to only try and outwit Nightmare Springtrap alone. Nightmare Springtrap very rarely enters the closet or appears on the player's bed, but the player will be able to detect his movements based on the moaning sounds he makes. I don't know why everyone makes Springtrap moan. It's kinda creepy and a big red flag if you ask me. In at 10, killing where you eat. The biggest mistake that William ever made, in my personal opinion, and I will say this until the day I die, was the fact that he killed people in his restaurant, okay? It's unknown if this was always his intention, but like, come on. Who would think that this is a good idea? Like, Who in the comments wants to come at me and try to justify killing your prime demographic in your place of business, okay? Dealers don't kill their customers, okay? Mechanics only bleed their their clients dry of their money, not their blood. So like, why would William think that this is a good idea? Literally, go anywhere else. This is just like, it's basically killing in your house and then like calling the cops and saying, hey, I killed someone in my house. It's putting unwanted attention and scrutiny on literally everything you do just so they can try to catch you. Like, you even end up getting banned from going back into your building when the investigation is underway. And it's not like it helped your business. You had to close the first location because of this, resulting in you having to open another one that killed your daughter. So, yeah, pretty embarrassing if you ask me. All you had to do was go to the park or some random alleyway or like a laser tag place, and then boom, your kids would be alive, you'd be harder to suspect, and you'd be rich from your business, because honestly it was a good idea, but you're done. And at 9, Cassidy. Assuming for this scenario that Cassidy is the one you should not have killed, this was also one of the most embarrassing things that William could have done. Or maybe he doesn't consider it a mistake, because like the one you should not have killed is kind of keeping him alive after all, although it's still unclear if they're doing that currently or not. But they're doing it as a way to make him suffer. So I feel like getting possessed by a child is pretty embarrassing. I mean, that, like, depending on the angle that you want to like look at, that I'm going with it's embarrassing. If I was possessed by a child, I would be embarrassed. I don't think I am, hopefully. But even if he does like consider this a good thing, or if Cassidy doesn't end up being the one you should not have killed, which in my opinion she's not, but like killing those 5 kids that made up the missing children's incident that likely ended with Cassidy, that's dude. Come on, we already talked about it. You killed in the wrong place. It's embarrassing. So, you know what? If you don't want to count Cassidy as the embarrassing mistake, count the missing children's incident as that mistake, alright? Just count it whatever way you want. It's on the list, deal with it. And at 8, Charlotte. While yes, Charlotte may have been Afton's first true kill, causing his descent into absolute freaking madness. In the game, Charlotte ends up possessing the puppet, who then gives life to the other animatronics, which causes you to disassemble them and release their spirit. In both universes where William kills Charlotte, it comes back to bite him in the since Henry comes after him for it, which results in what should be his death multiple times over. And not to mention how in the book specifically, unbeknownst to her at least, she is an animatronic robot that was meant to replace the daughter that Henry had lost. But it was also revealed that the animatronic is also Baby. You know, the baby animatronic that we all know and love? Yeah, who can switch between her forms at will, and then the human version doesn't remember being Baby. So yeah, Charlotte in the books is also Baby, which is also in the games William's daughter. It's 7, Clown Springtrap. Clown Springtrap is Springtrap's 3rd skin and the 3rd skin overall to be introduced into the Dark Circus event of FNAF AR. Clown Springtrap has a pale white suit with blue and purple makeup above his eyes. He also has messy purple hair coming out of his head, obviously, and large red lipstick as well because he's a clown. Clown Springtrap's body is mostly covered by a large suit with ripped up black pants and a black shirt, along with a red and purple vest. He features large red clown shoes along with a large red bow tie and flowers on his chest. His right eyelid has also been stitched up for some reason. Finally, he carries around a very large red mallet in his left hand, a la Harley Quinn. And considering how clowns are one of the most common fears, with more people in the United States being scared of clowns than global warming, I think putting Clown Springtrap on this list where he's intentionally jump scaring you in your own home is definitely understandable. And at 6, Henry. Why did you think that killing Charlotte wouldn't have any consequences, okay? Like, you killed your business partner's daughter. That was probably pretty obvious to him, especially since he already suspected you were up to something, and he took extra care to protect his daughter, and then she still died. That is 100% the superhero origin story that Henry needed. A vengeful father if I have ever seen one, and he didn't even need vengeance when he was putting that green bracelet on his daughter. So then you know what? Then he's after you, or it seems like it, and you don't kill him next? Like, killing Henry would have done so many wonders for your criminal career. I mean, like, yeah, the cops were already suspicious of you. As long as they can't find a body, they've already said that, like, they can't arrest you without a body, apparently. So if they won't put you away for 5 missing kids, they won't put you away for a missing father as well. Especially a jury who has to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that you're the killer. And I mean, like, I don't know, that's kind of up in the air, and like, you'd rather not go to trial if you were being charged with murder, but still, without a body, there can't really be any forensic evidence. So if you just, I don't know, throw it in a wood chipper. Again, these videos are going to be the reason I get hauled into the police station. Halfway through, in at number 5, Vanny. Vanny is a follower of the digital virus Glitch Trap, a form of the serial killer William Afton, and appears as the main antagonist of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. It's revealed in the Princess Quest minigames that she was also the main protagonist of FNAF Help Wanted, where she was first corrupted by the sentient code being thing. So technically, since Vanny is the part of Vanessa that is controlled by William, this makes her jump scare a William Afton jump scare. Vanny is shown to have a sadistic personality hidden behind a childlike flamboyance. This is shown through her casually and gleefully skipping after Gregory as he runs from her before running with arms outstretched if she gets too close. She also happily orders the staff bots to disassemble Glamrock Freddy in the phaser blast ending, and constantly laughs as she's going to kill Gregory. If she ever does catch Gregory though, which can happen unexpectedly at times, especially at certain points throughout the story, it can give you quite the fright. It's better than her trailer jump scare, since in that first trailer we couldn't really see anything, but not the scariest thing in the world. Mostly because you can see it coming for the most part, but there are a good few moments with her. Like when timers run out and stuff and she jump scares you. Those are good. But like the CRT effect kind of lets you know when she's coming. In at 4, fun times. Now, there's no doubting what you've achieved on a technical level. These are clearly state of the art. There are just certain design choices that were made for these robots that we don't fully understand. We were hoping you could shed some light on those. Well, she can dance, she can sing. She's equipped with a built-in helium tank for inflating balloons right at her fingertips. She can take song requests. She can even dispense ice cream. Yeah, with all due respect, those weren't the design choices we were curious about, Mr. Afton. Yeah, that classic line of William seemingly being interrogated by the police that plays the first time you open up Sister Location is definitely showcasing how embarrassingly stupid this guy is. The cops know what these animatronics are doing and are capable of, and what they were designed to do. So they instantly end up being even more suspicious of him, and considering like the circumstances, we can also assume that Elizabeth is inside the robot. Like, there's no way that they confiscated the animatronics before they had to close Circus Babies. So she is definitely still inside the robot. So they're definitely keeping a closer eye on him, and his daughter's in a robot that they're asking him about, okay? Bro, yeah, why? Designing the fun times as killbots before seemingly you actually had the rest of the FNAF roster, definitely an embarrassing moment. Especially considering how one of the fun times was meant to symbolize your dead wife. I don't wanna know how you were trying to fill that one with souls, bro. Leave me out of it. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Princess Quest. The whole reason Princess Quest is a thing in Security Breach was to lock Vanny away and prevent her from regaining control of her body. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a sort of failsafe that would let her escape? I mean, sure, they didn't expect a kid to come along and figure it out, maybe, but given the track record of this series, you'd think that Afton would have smartened up after at least 40 years. But that's like having a self-destruct button on a bomb that you plan to use to wipe out the entire city, but you still want no one to stop you. Or like if the Flash had a steal my speed button on his suit that you could just like tap. It's just stupid. Like, if you want something to work, why give it away to fail, you know? This is one of the dumbest things that William has done, and probably the 3rd dumbest thing overall. And I'll talk about the most dumb in a couple minutes, but seriously, what's the point behind a way to undo your evil plans? One of the absolute most ridiculous things in this story. Like, I get it, so that we can save her and have a good ending, but that ending isn't even canon, so we could have done without it. It's one of the dumbest things known to man at this point. Like, William has the brain capacity of a toddler. Penultimately, in at number 2, Princess Quest. The whole reason Princess Quest is a thing in Security Breach was to lock Vanny away and prevent her from regaining control of her body. So why did William create or allow for the creation of a failsafe to allow her to escape? I mean, sure, they didn't expect the size of a 4-year-old kid to come along and figure it out, but given the track record of William, you'd think that he'd have smartened up after at least 40 years. But that's like having a self-destruct button on the thing that's gonna save the world, that the villain can just come up and go boop. That's like some Austin Powers level comedy. Or like if the Flash had a steal my speed button on like him anywhere at any point. It's just stupid. If you want something to work, why give it away to fail? And then you let it happen. It fails because of a kid the size of a 4-year-old. Maybe, not even. This is one of the dumbest, most embarrassing things that William has had happen, and probably like the 3rd dumbest overall, okay? But seriously, what was the point behind the way to undo your evil plans? Well, that's like one of the most ridiculous, unbelievable things in a story about serial killers getting possessed and animatronic robots getting possessed. I know that it was like it was required so that we could have a good ending to this game, but like that ending isn't even canon, so we don't care about it. Okay, it was one of the dumbest things that has ever happened in this series. Why? Why would you do that? And finally, into number 1, Springtrap. Being the genius behind some of the most advanced robotic technology in the universe, we expect a lot from William, okay? He's the suit technician, he's the main killer, he seems to be the CEO of the company, so he should really know what he's doing, right? Apparently not. Since after discovering that the original 5 animatronics were possessed, he disassembled them to learn their secrets. This inadvertently released the spirits of the original 5 victims, though, causing William to panic, which is understandable since firstly they're freaking ghost kids that he never expected to see again, and also because they're the ghost kids that he killed. Okay, so this absolute animatronic genius, the technician that has handled the suit maintenance for years and has explained to every employee the proper procedure for the spring lock suits, including the spring bodysuit that he uses, ends up climbing inside the suit in a panic in an attempt to make himself feel more powerful and maybe scare off the ghost kids. However, he's so smart that he didn't notice the moisture in the room, the leaking ceiling, which causes the spring locks that were active at this moment since it was in suit mode to fail, which would have killed him had he not been possessed by the one you should not have killed. Yeah, embarrassing.